Kekaimalu was designed by the Swanson brothers, a family of Norwegian yacht designers and master boat builders in Australia. She's 42 foot long with a canoe stern and an encapsulated lead keel. Her draft is 5 foot 10 and her displacement is nearly 13 tonne. Her hull is solid fiberglass, but her fit-out is A-grade teak, a labour of love which took her previous owners 15 years to finish. They cruised the Pacific with her until 2004 when she joined our family. Welcome to our home, Kekaimalu.
So starting at the pointy end, we've got a double bow roller that holds a 50-pound CQR anchor, and we've got 100 metres of 8mm chain, which is fed down the anchor winch hawser pipe, and the hawser pipe actually goes back into the boat so that the centre of gravity of the chain is further away from the bow and closer to the centre of the boat. The anchor's been great. We've never had a problem with it. We always back down on it and make sure we dig it in, and we watch the chain get really taut. And once we dig it in, we've really never had a problem. Here we've got our foresail. So this is fitted onto a Goyot. It's a French brand furling system. It's the original furling system that came with the boat. It's nice and solid, so it's always been very reliable. Never had a problem with it, never jammed. And I think it's just that it's built quite solidly and we've maintained it. Okay, next we've got our staysail. So when we purchased the boat, which is about 15 years ago, there was no furler on this. There was just a wire cutter stay, they call it, or inner forestay. And we would hank on the foresail if the wind was over 25 knots, and particularly if we're going to windward. It works great going to windward because we get a very tight sheeting angle. And we purchased the Goyot furling system for that, same as the foresail. Subsequently, we had to get the staysail changed from a hank-on luff to a rope luff. And then a bit later on, we actually had a new staysail made that it's designed for, up to 70 knot gusts. It's very heavy, and it has rope in the luff so that we can furl it and it doesn't bag out. And it's been great, it's fantastic. We've got a large hatch on the foredeck. Thanks, Lucy. It's designed for Lucy, as you can see, to stand and get attention. Come on, off you go. Come on. So this is quite a heavy aluminium hatch, and it's got lockdown bolts on either side, and that's quite a solid front hatch. Coming back to the mast well, we have the all-important Lucy toilet in place, and we've got a halyard winch on this side, which is for the genoa and topping lift and the staysail halyard, and on this side we've got the winch for the spinnaker halyard and the main halyard. These what they call granny bars are really great for keeping you safe and secure while you're working at the mast. We recently unstepped the mast and had the mast and boom sandblasted and repainted, and we had the standing rigging replaced and a bracket fitted for a radar unit. The mainsail is a cruise laminate and it has full-length battens. We have a Ronston bat car system, which has always been fabulous for getting, it slides really easily, so the mainsail goes up and down very easily. It's a really great system. And got the main halyard here, and we've got two reefing lines that come down to here to a pulley, then come back up here, and we've got a outhaul line on the other side. So most of the work has to be done here at the mast, which is fine. There's less complication going back to the cockpit and less things to go wrong, in my opinion. So in terms of managing the main, we used to have a system of a block and tackle that went from the boom down to the chain plates, then back to the cockpit, and we could tension up the boom if we were running downwind as a boom preventer system. And that worked really well, except for the fact that it just led to a lot more lines going down to the cockpit and more ropes to get in the way and to get tangled up. So we've changed it now to a system that basically has a Dyneema line led to the gooseneck, and of course we'll just connect the rope to that and take it to the bow and tension it up. As this boat has a permanently fixed inner forestay, sometimes called a cutter stay, it needs support behind the mast at the point where that's fixed to it. So we've got running backstays, they're sometimes also called check stays, and when we originally purchased the boat, this was a stainless steel wire with a large metal pulley on it, like a block and tackle. And that worked fine, except that it was very difficult to prevent that from banging into the coach house as the boat's moving. So we decided to change it to a Dyneema stay, and that's been great. We fitted 200 watt solar panels onto this roof space. We went with the flexible panels. They've been quite good. They put out about maximum of about 5 to 6.5 amps out of each panel when they have full sun. And the main benefit of going with this style was that the solar efficiency is actually very high, but also I can walk on them. So I can get up here and do whatever I need to do to the main. And you couldn't do that if we'd put in solid panels there. We recently modified how the bimini system worked for the boat. It used to fold forward, which meant there was a crossbar that used to sit out here, and it used to make it really difficult getting in and out of the cockpit. So we changed the front bar and we installed a new rear bar, a solid bar that's fixed to the deck, and there's a crossbar across here and it's nice and rigid. We added handholds, which we didn't have before. On here and on the back of the back bar there's a handhold, so that's a great benefit. We have discussed the bimini in more detail in one of our other videos, so if you want to click on the link above, you can sort of find that video and explore that a bit further if you wish. We've got 2 winches on either side of the cockpit. They're both 2-speed, each of them, so that you can reverse your rotation and get a greater gear ratio. So these are the solar panels which we've covered in a previous video. You can see the link at the top of the screen. We've got a post for a wind generator which is currently off, pending replacement. And integral with this post, we've got a davit for the outboard motor, which makes it quite easy to get it on and off the dinghy. Back here we've got a lazarette hatch. Inside the lazarette we've got 2 9-kilo bottles of LPG gas and some anchor tackle, fenders and bits and pieces.
And chip.
And our trusty Weber barbecue, which has been fantastic.
And now for the cockpit. The cockpit is our indoor-outdoor living space where we spend 80% of our time relaxing, working, or sailing. We can do this because we've had it enclosed with good fitting clears that we can adjust for any weather condition. It can be windy or raining. We're always cozy. To sail, all we have to do is remove the table and fit the wheel. In the cockpit, we have the chart plotter, a compass, and various instruments for wind, depth, speed, etc., as well as the autopilot. There are good handholds and lifeline attachment points. That's the main sheet winch, which sits conveniently inside the cockpit, as does the hatch to our cabin.
So this is the coach house or pilot house?
The pilot house is a very comfortable space. On a passage, its 2 sea berths with lee cloths lets you get some rest without being too far from the person on watch.
My galley is situated on the port side of the boat in a very convenient location, right next to the companionway.
I like my galley. It has everything I need. Firstly, I have a 2-burner cooktop and a good oven. We have a 4-step gas control. We turn on the gas supply circuit breaker, the gas detection alarm, the gas supply, and the valve behind the stove lets it flow. Just nearby we have a fire blanket and a 40-amp battery charger. And a fire extinguisher. This is the wet locker, where we stow away the wheel and our wet weather gear. There are good-sized drawers for cutlery and other implements. I've never yet run out of storage on this boat. There's so many little nooks and hiding places, like this very deep storage in these cupboards. This is where we keep our everyday cups and plates, etc. And when we go sailing, we just fit this teak retainer to keep everything from falling out. Under the sink, pots and pans and other bits and pieces are safely stowed away. There's a foot pump for seawater and a hand pump for fresh water from our tanks. We have quite a large eutectic freezer which will come in handy when we go on passages. This is where we keep our washboards, which we can use to stop water coming into the boat under sail or to close the boat off completely.
So here's the nav station. It's got a curved seat so that when the boat's heeling it sort of holds you in, which is quite good. We've got a chart table and chart storage under. We've got quite a lot of 12 volt and 240 volt outlets to power laptops, iPads, phones, whatever we need to charge. Up on the right hand side here we've got the 3 main control systems for the power distribution through the boat. Up here we've got an amp hours meter which shows us the voltage of the house or engine starting battery. It also shows us what we're consuming in amps and how much we've consumed out of each battery system. Next to that we've just got an analog amp meter and a analog DC volts meter for each of the 2 battery systems, and next to that we've got a master control switch to switch off all the house systems if we need to. Over here we've got a 240 volt power controller for the Xantrix system, and we've got some bilge pump controls, and the diesel genset control is here for starting it and stopping it. The panel here hasn't been fixed up since we installed all the new electronics, so it's looking a bit daggy at the moment. Up here we've got a ICOM M700 HF radio, which is connected to the antenna which is part of the backstay. Underneath that we've got a B&G VHF radio that's DSC enabled. We've got our EPIRB mounted here for easy access, I suppose, should you need it. And we have 2 mobile broadband systems on the boat. One's mounted here and one is up in the cockpit, so that we've got a bit of redundancy in the event that one ISP can't connect. We can't connect to one ISP, but we can to the other.
This is our drinks fridge, which we've had recently reconditioned. Above, a handy drawer for bits and pieces. Behind the nav station is the starboard side cabin. It used to look like this, but recently we've converted it to a storeroom. Here we keep the portable fridge, the bread maker, and all our camera equipment, as well as backpacks, etc. It is also where I have my hanging locker, and extra drawers for all my things. Here there is also access to the starboard side of the engine.
So here we are in the starboard side access doors, and we've got a manual bilge pump here. The main NMEA bus system runs through here. Okay, so we've got access to the front of the engine just by removing a few components. So that gives us access to all the front end of the motor and quite a bit of the electrics, the main earthing buses. The front here we've got the heat exchanger, the engine start battery, and yeah, we've got a Bosch 120 amp alternator, which was actually retrofitted before we bought the boat. That's been great. It really does pump out a lot of amps when the revs are right and the batteries are at the right charge state. What we've got from the back part of it is fuel transfer pump. We've got a hot water system, fresh water supply system and filter, water pump, the main engine intake strainer, and just the back part of the motor down here and the propeller shaft.
This used to be a small head, but we never used it, so we've removed it. We might install a washing machine here one day. But for now, we're just using it to store our out-of-season shoes and clothes. Welcome to the master cabin.
Underneath the bed, we've got a diesel genset here, and access to the quadrant and autopilot under this part of the bed. So I'll just show you quickly how it looks. We've got a 2-cylinder Kubota diesel engine here with a 150 amp alternator that runs off the crankshaft. We used to have a low pressure pump for the desalinator and a high pressure pump up here, and also a compressor for the freezer here, and it was just too crowded, too many things in a small place, very difficult to access, so we've removed them and just made it a simple genset, which works fine. So here we've got access to the quadrant with a few things like the hydraulic fluid for the autopilot. That's the autopilot octopus pump. We've got a emergency tiller, which I'll show you how that goes. And then this all neatly comes apart. Very, very intricate.
Like a puzzle.
Yeah, like a jigsaw puzzle. To get access to the quadrant and the hydraulic ram down here for the autopilot. So in the event that we have a steering cable failure, We can of course still use the autopilot, but if we get a steering cable failure and an autopilot failure, the next resort is we've got a tiller that bolts onto the quadrant. So this bracket goes into the quadrant, there's 2 bolts that go through the bottom to connect it, and then this beautiful looking tiller gets bolted onto the shaft, and we're back in business.
Next to the bed, there's a desk for writing with a drawer underneath. There's a good-sized chest of drawers and above a large hatch, which affords us good ventilation. Jim's hanging locker is in the companionway.
This is our saloon.
We have everything you might have in a home. We have a TV, Lucy's favourite, a stereo, and plenty of shelf space for my books.
On the port side we have a long settee, and it has a lee cloth that comes out, and it makes for a comfy sea berth being in the middle of the boat.
On the port side we have the freezer compressor and stowage for glasses, and behind the seats more storage.
On the starboard side we have a U-shaped lounge which converts into another sea berth. We've sat 6 people around the table quite comfortably, and Lucy loves the leather seats. Don't you, Luce?
Here we store a Xantrex 1800 watt inverter and more storage behind the seats and underneath them. On a boat you really need as much storage as you can get. Now for what lies beneath our feet. Under the floorboards we have 400 litres of water in 2 tanks. Here we also find the grey water tank and the mast support structure, which is a heavy hot-tip galvanised steel box section frame that is continuous right around the hull and deck, forming a strong support structure for the mast and the chain plates.
Just forward of the saloon we have the head on the starboard side, an air conditioning unit on the port side behind this bulkhead, and when we want to use the bathroom we just close the door this way. Welcome to our bathroom, shower and head.
This is our Dometic reverse cycle air conditioner. It's a heat pump that works off seawater rather than interior air. The outlet is situated in the saloon and pretty much heats or cools the entire boat. This is our head with an electric flushing toilet. We have a lot of storage here too. When we want to shower, we simply pull the curtains around. This is where we store all the first aid and medical gear. And where we keep torches, batteries, candles and other bits and pieces. Notice we have another fire extinguisher here. Last but not least, in the forepeak we have Jim's workshop. This is where Jim keeps the cleaning and maintenance items he needs for the boat. We have our Dyson vacuum cleaner, which I love, our soda stream, our laundry things, towels and dirty laundry. Again, there's plenty of storage. This is also where the anchor locker is situated, as well as Jim's toolbox. Thank you for watching this video. Kekaimalu has been a part of our family for 15 years and we just love to show her off. You can buy Lucy a bone by liking, subscribing and sharing. And if you want to make certain you get to see our next video, don't forget to press the bell button. We thank you for following our journey, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.